Hello there my dear friends, and welcome back to another Star Wars video. It is I coming at you once again, your friend and your favourite galactic hostess, Star Wars Meg. And today, I want to continue our discussion of Maul Shadow Lord, and I want to talk about a couple of things that have been bouncing around in my mind, especially after rewatching the latest 2 episodes. Now you might have noticed, I didn't post a video yesterday. I wanted to let my breakdown review of episodes 7 and 8 brew for a bit, and just give everyone time to catch up on the latest couple of episodes. I did put out a poll though, and I do thank everyone who voted, and it does seem like the vast majority of those in this community are enjoying the series, at least those who are watching it, and I just want to give you guys a heads up, when Maul Shadow Lord comes to an end, I will be doing a rankings video of every animated Star Wars show. I do suspect I have a couple of hot takes which a lot of fans might be surprised about, maybe pissed off at me for, but we all have our own tastes and I always keep things $1.50. And I do just want to address a very quick point before we dive into today's topic. You might have noticed that compared to most Star Wars shows, I haven't made as many videos on Maul. I have made a good dozen of them, but usually when a new show drops, I do breakdowns, reviews, but then, in the days that follow, I post subsequent videos, diving into specific scenes, moments, themes, characters, you name it. But the way the Maul show is structured and paced is a bit different. It's very different to something like The Bad Batch. And please don't come at me for saying this, but as much as I've been loving the show so far, 8 episodes in, from a creator standpoint, it has been very straightforward. And you know what? That's fine. That's just the nature of it. And it works well for the kind of show Lucasfilm made this to be. So most of what I have to say about the new episodes is encompassed in those initial reviews. But today, my friends, I want to focus on an aspect of Shadow Lord which I've been having a blast with, and that is the reintroduction of Marrok, the First Brother, and the Crow, the 11th Brother. These 2 Inquisitors have been capturing fandom interest for the best part of 2 or 3 years. Marrok re-emerges in the Age of the New Republic in the Ahsoka show. After his first death, he re-emerges working for Morgan Elsbeth and meets his end at the hands of Ahsoka Tano. The Crow is also killed by Ahsoka in Tales of the Jedi, and both Inquisitors also appear in the other anthology Tales of the Empire. And because of their recurring presence in recent Star Wars projects, it stands to reason they're more important than we think. And as I'm going to touch upon later in the video, I think Dave Filoni is setting us up for some huge identity reveals. Now, the one thing Maul Shadow Lord has been able to do with great success, and I would say against all the odds, is genuinely make the Inquisitors terrifying. The role these 2 played in the last couple of episodes has been what the Inquisitors should have always been, and that is a signal that you should be bloody afraid if you're a Force user, a survivor of Order 66, and they've successfully tracked you down. Because up until this point, the Inquisitors have been a mixed bag at best, and flat out incompetent at worst. This dichotomy is on full display in a project like Rebels, where the creators try to balance the scary side of these Jedi Hunters with a whimsical comic relief undertone. The Grand Inquisitor, on the other hand, is an example of an Inquisitor done right. When the Jedi fell for the Luminara and Julie trap, and he presents himself for the first time to Kanan and Ezra, you get a sense of the way his mind has been twisted, and the sycophants he's fallen for to do everything he can to appease Vader, and postpone his eventual inevitable death. Although as the Grand Inquisitor says, there are fates worse than death. And it's the way these Inquisitors were forced to do the bidding of the Empire that made them so scary in the first place. The fact they would stop at nothing to hunt down their former Jedi colleagues, just to extend their survival just a little bit longer. It's a horrifying, meaningless, humiliating existence, just to be a disposable cog. It's scarier knowing that he too was once a Jedi. Some Inquisitors were driven by their rage, by the torture Vader put them through, and their feelings of betrayal, and sometimes that does shine through, but oftentimes they were just simply portrayed as goofy. But in Maul Shadow Lord, everything about the Inquisitors is menacing. Even the entrance of the Crow with his scythe, the descent of his Phi-class shuttle on Janix, it was like waving a flag of death. And then the way he emerges from it, with the wind blowing his cape, was really badass, and did justice to his terrifying but awesome appearance. And the Star Wars databank has actually updated his entry since, to specify he was one of the most feared Inquisitors of the Order. This is hinting towards a horrifying truth. As I said, Dave Filoni keeps bringing these guys back for a reason, and I wouldn't be surprised if on May the 4th, in the last 2 episodes, we get a huge reveal as to who this guy is. And maybe it has nothing to do with his identity, but rather his reputation based on the previous Jedi he killed. There's a reason Vader sent Marrok, and then this guy. He's probably one of the most trusted brothers. Could you imagine if he killed someone like Operan Sissis, the Padawan of Yaddle, who is confirmed to have survived Order 66? And his mask is rather unique. I mean, there's a reason they call him the Crow. In the superstitions of many cultures around the world, crows are considered omens of death, or even messengers that bridge the gap between death and the afterlife. And I suppose what I really want to know about these two Inquisitors is, were they recruited the same way most of the others were? Were they Jedi before they were captured and recruited at the end of the Clone Wars? Were they tortured like so many other Jedi and corrupted by the dark side? Or is there a reason Marrok is called the First Brother and was later specifically chosen by the Grey Mothers to be revived? Is he a revived Savage Opress? Probably not based on his smaller frame, but maybe he's another Night Brother or a Maul clone. As for the 11th Brother, I saw another channel say he might be Savage. Again, I really don't think they're going to go that route, but his true identity might be just as significant. But like I said, something very impressive in Maul Shadow Lord is that the Inquisitors are competent. They do their job, and they're a menacing presence that nearly defeated Maul. He's gonna have to fix his bionic legs, but the Inquisitors did come very close, and we've come a long way since the days of the helicopter sabers in Star Wars Rebels. For the longest time, even with Reva in the Kenobi show, the Imperial Inquisitorius has been perceived as something of a joke, especially compared to the likes of Darth Vader or Sidious, the real Sith behind the Empire whose presence signals that you're probably gonna die. And I feel like Dave Filoni probably knows this, which is why in the last couple of projects where we've seen Inquisitors, whether it's these guys or the one in Tales of the Underworld, Lucasfilm has started to take them seriously. Even if they're disposable cogs, they're still supposed to have a pretty high kill rate. That being said, something which is becoming a big problem for Star Wars is reintroducing characters earlier in the timeline, whose deaths we've already seen. As much as I love Tales of the Jedi, with hindsight, I honestly wish the Crow had never faced Ahsoka in that episode. I wish she had taken down a different Inquisitor, because knowing the way he dies, even though Ahsoka is very powerful and you would expect her to defeat him, it's just a bit of a dampener at the back of my mind when watching the latest Maul episodes, having foreknowledge of the way these characters are going to die. It might just be me, but it does take away from some of the impact of the show. I guess you could say the same about Darth Maul himself, knowing that he has to survive in 2 Star Wars Rebels. And I suppose you can make this argument for pretty much anything in Star Wars. You can say the same about the prequel trilogy, the Mandoverse having to set up the sequel trilogy, but I do see a bit of a difference when it comes to Inquisitors. They're disposable, and there's lots of them. Either they could have given us new Inquisitors for this show, or they never gave us their deaths in the first place. In Tales of the Jedi, we see Ahsoka decapitate the Crow, but we don't get to see what he looks like from her perspective. We just see the mask falling to the ground, and just like Marrok, it lets out a little fart and just deflates. And look, this might sound shallow, and I'm not taking into account the subplots with the Lawsons and the Janek stuff, but there's nothing more satisfying and appealing to the inner child of most Star Wars fans than seeing dark side users with different motives dueling against one another, whether it's the Inquisitors versus Maul, or the flashback of Maul training with Sidious. It's just so rare to see so many red lightsabers clash, and some people might be afraid to admit it, but it's one of the more fun parts of the Star Wars universe. There's a reason lightsabers have always been an iconic symbol of the Star Wars franchise. That's just been something I've been thinking about, my friends. But what do you guys think? What do you make of my thoughts in this video about the Inquisitors? Do you have any crazy theories going into the last 2 episodes? Share them in the comments down below. And if you enjoyed this one, please be sure to give me a big fat thumbs up, subscribe if you're new, and may the Force be with you always.